Now there's so many bad things in this really bad world. Just try to break through and pass out the blur. Don't you see that the road is long and dark? So hang on to the colors floating around. Something inside my mind is bringing me down. Shoot me to the stars, just shoot me to the stars tonight. What a sweet time tonight. What a sweet time tonight. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, from the chilly basement, hence my many layers. For those of you not familiar with the Midwest, you dress in layers in order to stay warm. So, chilly. But anyway, good to be here with all of you. Thanks for joining. And once again, it is our Wednesday night webinar brought to you by NOCD. NOCD, an online platform for the treatment of OCD and related conditions. If you're looking for help for OCD and related conditions, check us out at NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com, where we work with hoarding, BFRBs, tics. BFRBs are things like trichotillomania or hair pulling, excoriation or skin picking, and of course, obsessive compulsive disorder. And one of my favorite things, if you're looking for information about OCD or related conditions, but you're maybe not quite ready for primetime therapy, or if you've got a family member or friend and you want to know information about OCD and how you can help them, you could do one of our NOCD 411 sessions, not a therapy session, where we give you some info about OCD and how you might be able to maybe work on motivating that person into getting the treatment that they need. NOCD.com. We are in UK, Australia, Canada, and the US of A, and we take lots of insurances here in the US as well. Thanks for joining. Let's get into it. 4103 Soundarnyan says, is overthinking OCD? It is not. Could it be involved in OCD? Of course, but not everybody who overthinks things has obsessive compulsive disorder. So we can't make that generalized of a statement, but definitely people with OCD, I would say, think way too much, right? So if you have OCD, you probably do a lot of overthinking, but just because you overthink doesn't mean you have OCD. How to do response prevention for just feel right OCD. Work on things just feeling wrong and allowing them to be there and live that way. If there's things that you do in order to make things seem right and that's satisfying to your OCD, do things that aren't satisfying to your OCD and move on with your life even though those are there. So maybe throw a hanger on the floor instead of hang everything up before you leave, or leave a plate on the counter instead of putting it with the other plates. Even though obviously that plate wants to be with the other plates in the cupboard, leave it on the counter. So things like that, where you're not going to do things exactly the way that OCD wants them done. Alyssa says, I have harm OCD and I wake up at 5 a.m. seeing tunnel vision with the feelings of losing control and losing my mind. I obviously get really scared and the urge comes in to do harm while you're disoriented and your body kind of moved to get up and do harm. You closed your eyes and was fully awake after 10 seconds. You've been panicking about it for a week. Is this something I can move on from? Well, yeah, number one, yes. And B, it is fascinating where I'm glad you brought this up, because OCD loves to evaluate things as in just a movement meant I was fixing to get ready to do something. One of my favorite quotes from back when I lived in the South there. But, OCD will do this. I was walking past a family and my arm moved toward them. Did that mean I was trying to steal one of their children and molest them? I was walking past something and my arm moved. Was I trying to steal it and grab it from them? I was in church and I bowed. Was I bowing, or was I trying to look down into hell and to welcome the devil into the church or something like that? You can interpret any kind of bodily movement into an OCD kind of experience. OCD will go there. It doesn't have to mean anything whatsoever, but OCD will always try to find a meaning for it. And you may all notice this, shockingly, but it's always the worst case, awful, horrible thing as well. No one has, as of yet, come to a session to meet with me and tell me, I'm afraid everyone loves me and thinks I'm awesome. I'd like some help with that. That has never been a part of a therapy session that I've done. So you worst case scenarios out there will come up with all these things, and we will see them tonight for the next, 52 minutes, where all of you are going to come up with things and do a couple of things. Here's my predictions for tonight. Number one, someone will say, why does it feel so real? Some of you have been playing jokes on me about that one, but I've caught on to you, you sneaky little sneakertons. And number two, you will say, yes, I know that this, but why does this have to me? Why can't it be something else? And OCD is always going to grab onto the thing that is important to you, and that's what you're going to have OCD about. You couldn't have OCD about something you didn't care about, right? That just wouldn't happen, because if you didn't care about it, you wouldn't care if you even did compulsions or not. So it just wouldn't matter. You have OCD about things that you really care about, and you'll try to come up with, okay, but you've never said it exactly this way, so does this mean something different? And the answer is no. We could just spend 9,000 hours on permutations of something, and you'll still say, yes, but you didn't exactly say the 100% identical thing to me, so does that mean that it's something different? No. But you're going to go there, and we're going to see that tonight. Just keep that in mind. Bruce and the New York real estate says, just right OCD is hard for you too. You experience sudden thoughts and urge you to repeat an action of all kinds of permanent chaos that might happen if you do not. Since you worry about the afterlife and other lifetimes, you've never have the evidence that refusing to engage actually hurt anyone or not. It's difficult, but you're trying to live with uncertainty. Any advice? You say also you have in the moment, in real time, just right OCD when the urge to repeat the action comes up throughout the day, no matter what you do. If Bruce, I can't guarantee that you're not the bringer of chaos into the world. It could happen. It is, I guess, a possibility. I am also not going to lay any money on the line that you are, because I think that would be a terrible bet. You sound like a person who has OCD, and if it quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck. And in these situations, that's where I'm kind of thinking about it. But again, because you think something doesn't make it true and doesn't make it real. And maybe we'll see that tonight too. Yes, but why did I think it then? Why does it have to be this thing? Or if I thought it, doesn't mean that I actually want it. There is that concept of thought-action fusion, where many people will hold on to this idea that thinking something is just as bad as doing something, right? But I would contend not actually the case. Just because we think something doesn't mean it's true. Otherwise, in the thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times that I have wished for the ceiling to collapse upon me in the talks that I do, it still has not happened. If I can't even collapse a ceiling on myself, I don't understand how I'm going to bring permanent chaos into the world, if that was the case. But you know what? I'm going to try right now. If trigger warning, if you don't want to hear this, close your ears. But I'm going to attempt to bring utter chaos into the world right now. Here we go. Chaos, come into the world right now. And show proof by making the screens of everybody watching this flicker 27 times in the next minute. All right, so let's see if it happens, right? I'm going to doubt that it does, but maybe I got more powers than I've ever given myself credit for. I don't know. And Bruce, all I can go with is possibly maybe, but I don't think so. Likely not, but possibly maybe. Jack says you keep finding yourself in these endless thought loops, which you're not aware of until someone points it out to you. For example, when your therapist says to stop all mental compulsions. Well, that doesn't work. It'd be nice to just say that, but you have to do more than that. Instead of stopping, you try to find the perfect way or strategy to stop doing compulsions, which is a compulsion in and of itself. You struggle to notice these thought loops and you feel like they keep you stuck. Another example is when you read that you have to give up the OCD fight. That's a good one. Instead of giving up, I tried to find the perfect way to give up and constantly asking myself, am I giving up? Is this giving up? You know what giving up would be, Jack? in the way that we want you to give up the fight is to be perfect. Well, not perfect. Sorry, I almost said perfectly. Bad OCD therapist. You almost said a bad word. Is to allow for the fact that you'll never know, right? You may not catch all the loops. That's okay. You may challenge OCD once in a while. Kind of natural. In the end, though, I don't want you fighting OCD. I've never seen OCD lose. What I want you to do is not care about OCD. And when you don't care about OCD, that's when it fades away. If your goal is, I am going to beat this OCD into submission, I'm putting my money on OCD. If your goal is, I'm going to get to a point where no matter what OCD may have as a thought or an image or an urge, I'm going to go, okay, and move on with my life. Now I'll put money on that as a great treatment. I would go there any day, but I would not go to, I'm going to beat OCD into submission. I'm going to get it to recognize that, I'm going to win. Now, you say you tried to find the perfect way to give up. You've already failed. Because the moment you've attempted to do the perfect way to give up, you failed already, because there is no perfect way to give up. Right? So this is another trickery of OCD. Jack, if you just find the perfect way to give up, I'll be gone. Parentheses. Jack, there's no such thing as the perfect way to give up. Close parentheses. So we're not going to try that. That's not going to be our attempt whatsoever. We are not going to attempt to perfectly give up OCD. What are we going to do? We're going to acknowledge and move on. That is what we are going to do. Hey, there's some OCD. All right, well, I got two choices. I can go down the road of compulsions and do what it wants me to do, or I could go, oh, yeah, okay, whatever, cool, and moving on. And that's where I want you to go. Okay, that's what I want you to do. Dare Warfare says, at work I have to put out mental folding chairs. Mental folding chairs. Oh, I think you meant metal folding chairs, but I like that it came out as mental folding chairs, because I was really stumped for a second there trying to figure out what the heck is a mental folding chair. But now I kind of get it. At work, you have to put out metal folding chairs. Some of the rubber pieces are coming off the chairs. I am the only one that puts them out. If some breaks the chair by sitting on them, is it your fault? What's good ERP? Oh, the rubber pieces on the feet. Well, Dare Warfare, if you weren't putting them out and others were and the rubber pieces were breaking, would you blame the person who had put them out? Or would you say there's a natural wear and tear to rubber pieces at the bottom of chairs? Right. I recently had one of my dining room chairs, the bottom thing broke and a tiny little nail was sticking out. And I was like, why is my chair not moving? And I pushed hard and it kind of scratched the floor a little bit in an area. So how much should I blame myself, Dare Warfare? How much punishment do I deserve for that? Just let me know. I'm just curious how much I should punish myself over the fact that I too had a chair that one of the stoppers on the bottom broke, and I would just like to know what the appropriate level of punishment would be for myself for that, and who I should atone to. I do live by myself, so I'm just wondering, should I run outside and yell to the neighbors that I'm an idiot for allowing this to happen? Or is some self-flagellation necessary? I could get the old cat of nine tails or something and whip myself a few times for allowing such a thing to occur. Or do these things just happen? And does OCD like to grab onto things that just happen and assign meaning to them and assign fault to them? Because I've definitely seen that happen before, right? Is it your fault? Well, you have to decide if you're at fault for all of the wear and tear of all the chairs that you put up and out. it's almost as if you're saying to me the only wear and tear on these rubber things comes from putting them out or taking them up, and has nothing to do with the people that are sitting on them whatsoever, or the kids that are moving them around or kicking them or anything like that. But no, they would have absolutely nothing to do with it. You are the only one who would have anything to do with it at all, Jack. So dare warfare. So just, let me know what you think on that. Truth exists. Good day, Dr. Patrick. How can I challenge a very strong and persistent belief that is created by OCD? Like, for example, I have to think about something in a certain order or control your certain thought. Well, I mean, I love doing ERP along the lines of purposely doing things in different orders. You might take a look at the order that you do things and number it. I do this first and second and third, fourth, fifth, and then you might take a die, right, and roll a die, and you might have to start with whatever number comes up. So if you roll a 6, you have to start with the 6th thing you normally do instead of the first thing that you normally do, and you shake it up and you do them all differently. And then after you do the 6th thing, then you roll another die, right? So I love having people do things in a purposely not right experience to learn that they can handle it. Meg Johnson says, can OCD cause lack of attraction even if it's not our OCD or sexual orientation OCD, because you don't have either one? I just have a lot of anxiety. You have harm OCD. Well, I'm wondering how a lack of attraction would come into play here, unless you are afraid that people you're attracted to, like let's say that you have a partner, and you would be afraid of harming the people that you are attracted to or that you're in love with or that you have a relationship with. And maybe you've thought, if I can convince myself I'm not attracted to them, then I won't want to be with them anymore. And then if I'm not with them anymore, how can I harm them? So that could play a role in this, I suppose. I could see something like that happen, potentially. Mm-hmm. Free the mind and the rest. Oh, sorry, I started singing. Free the mind says, is it normal? Yelling, by the way, just lots of caps there. Is it normal to get a tingling sensation in the right front of your head or your heart dropping when you see an unexpected trigger having to do with health or death OCD themes? My mind instantly tells me you have to do a compulsion and do an action because you had a physical symptom. Well, is it normal? I don't know. I mean, everybody has different ways that they react to things and to triggers. Some might feel tingling sensations in their toe, some maybe in their hand, some in their knee. I don't know. You can feel them anywhere. So is it normal? There's no way to answer that question, but do people feel physical anxiety sensations when triggered? Absolutely. That happens all the time, right? So there's nothing unusual about that right there. The issue says, just because your mind tells you have to do a compulsion because you had a symptom, I would say, does not mean that is actually true, right? You could, if you choose to do a compulsion, all it is going to do is make your OCD stronger, if that's the case. Or you could choose not to do the compulsion and allow yourself the opportunity to challenge your OCD and learn that you can handle OCD without compulsions. So you've got some options there to make some decisions around and see where it goes. Okay. Do you have to do a compulsion though? No, nobody has to do compulsion. It isn't mandatory. OCD says it's mandatory, but I call BS on OCD because I say it's full of crap. So no one has to do a compulsion. Joyce says, can Boost Bar augment an SSRI for OCD? I've seen people prescribed Boost Bar in addition to SSRIs for anxiety and OCD. I can't give you an exact effectiveness on it. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I have seen people use Boost Bar before. Carolina says, how do I move away from the thought that I could always check for a thought and it will be there? Well, the moment we check for a thought, it is going to be there, because in the act of checking to see if something's there, it appears, right? If I'm going to check to see if I'm thinking about chocolate-covered fish sticks, guess what thought just appeared? Chocolate-covered fish sticks. Yeah, isn't that a shocker? That is just the way that our brain works, right? So uh, it will always be there. So now that we know that, Carolina, do why do you need to move on from that thought? You're almost saying that knowing that would make it terrible, but I know that, and I'm not feeling terrible about it whatsoever. I'm not saying that to compare me to you, like ha ha ha. I'm saying, what am I missing? Now that I know my thinking of something and by checking for it means that it will be there, why am I not overwhelmed by that? What am I missing in this whole process that you're saying makes it so overwhelming? Where am I missing something? What is going wrong in that situation? Please let me know. I would appreciate it. ABF says, I wanted to take a moment to apologize for Rick rolling me a few weeks ago. Oh, you're saying it was uncalled for. I think that it was. I think it was pretty hysterical, actually. So, and I don't accept your apology, just so you know, because ABF, my concern would be in your apologizing for the Rick rolling would be that that is a compulsion, and you are doing that because you've probably been thinking about it a lot now, and it's been on your mind, and now you want to get it off your mind. So, ABF, I do not accept your apology. I'm going to just let the Rick rolling stand there, and that's what it's going to be. All right, that's how it's going to go. Terracotta Ciabatta says, "What is the best metaphor for OCD and acceptance? I've been looking for ways that I can remind myself that I need to accept my intrusive thoughts, but I have rhyming compulsions. So the best thing that I could come up with was, I accept my thoughts like butterscotch. Since I don't like butterscotch, and acceptance means that I don't have to like it, but I accept that it exists." I like that. And thoughts and butterscotch definitely do not rhyme with each other whatsoever. Um, so so that's kind of cool. And I'll be interested to hear how that goes, right? I wonder if you could even just get it down to butterscotch, right? And then eventually, nah, and then a silent acknowledgement and moving on and having to, going away from all of those, right? That's what I would do. Mm-hmm. Do you recommend an intensive outpatient or inpatient in the state of Tennessee? Thank you. I do not know of any specific ones there, unfortunately. I apologize. What I would say to you, Howard, is this: the International OCD Foundation website would probably be the place to go. They have a very nice listing of programs across the country. So iocdf.org. Kane says, can you explain harm OCD? Of course, it is OCD about harm. Harm to self, harm to others. What if I were to harm myself? What if I were to bring harm to other people in some way? I would be responsible for harm or death or something bad happening. Why do I feel like it's not OCD and that I am a psychopath? I am worried all day until I go to bed that I will do something because I want to or just because I think about it. So, Kane, I'll give you an example of this. I have treated people now for 25 years with OCD. And one of the themes I've done, all of the themes, is harm. A significant amount of harm OCD, actually. And I have stood on many a staircase with people who are afraid of what if they were to push people down the stairs. And I have stood on staircases with them behind me, their hands on my shoulders, and allowing them to think about pushing me down the stairs. Now, because I have done this so much, this may not surprise you, but because I have done this so much, guess what has happened? I can no longer be on a staircase without contemplating the death of every single person on the staircase. It's true. If any of you are ever at a conference that I'm at and we are on stairs together, I will think about throwing you down the stairs. Just so you know. Now, Cain, how much worry should I have about this? Because similar to the previous question, am I missing out on something here? Because I know that every time I'm on a staircase or an escalator, I'm thinking about killing all of the people on the staircase and the escalator by pushing them down the staircase or the escalator. So again, Cain, I'm going to ask you, how much, right? How much should I be afraid of it? Because I seem to be missing out on that. Is there enough information, Cain, that you could give me that would lead me to fear? In fact, I've done this when I treat phobias. If I've treated somebody with an elevator phobia, there are times that I've said, tell me everything that I should be afraid of about the elevator. Tell me about all of the ways that I could die, right? It could fall and I could be crushed. There could be a fire and I'm trapped. Maybe it will hermetically seal and I won't be able to get any more oxygen. All of these things, right? And then you know what I do? Armed with all of that information about how terrible and awful and deadly an elevator could be, you know what I do? I get on the elevator and I ride the elevator. I could have all the information in the world about the danger of something and still do it. I have bungeed. I have jumped out of a plane. I have done these things knowing that they were not without risk. And I have done them anyway. And I quite enjoyed them, actually. I'm just wondering, Cain, what I'm missing. So if you want to put into there, Cain, what I'm missing, I'd like to hear it. Otherwise, it's not uncommon for people to feel like they're terrible, awful, horrible people. It's not uncommon for people with OCD to worry all day, what if I were to do something? Or what if I wanted to do something? But I'll tell you this, I'm really just not afraid of what ifs. They don't rule my life, and I don't want them to rule the life of the people I work with either. Because it can be a really tough existence if it does. Maddie said, once you had done ERP and mostly overcome the obsession, why does the thought still linger every day? I'm doing ERP and non-engagement, but the original thought harbors all day. Okay. And the goal, Maddie, is to not care about that. That it can be there. Why does my tinnitus linger every day, Maddie? Why, no matter who I talk to or what I do I still hear this sound in my ear? Why won't it just go away? Well, it's a medical issue that nobody has yet figured out. So, Maddie, what should I do? I hear a sound, Maddie, 24/7, 7 days a week, that nobody else hears. It's been going on for 20 years plus. Why does it still linger? And would it be best if I stop doing all of this and say, once I figure out a way to make this never happen again, then I can go back to doing what I do? Or do you just do what you do, and if it's there, it's there, and okay. We then move on. The quote-unquote cure of OCD is not, I'll never have a thought or an image or urge again. That's not the goal here. getting over OCD means whatever it throws at me, nah, okay, whatever. And then moving on. That's what it is. And that's where you go with it. Christina said, lately I've been doubting the fact that I've paid bills, so I pay the water bill twice and the electric bill twice. Fun times. Yeah, that sounds terrible. And now you probably have a credit, and that's going to keep building until they send you a check back, and then you'll wonder why they're sending a check back, and then you might want to send it back to them, and now you'll be in this fight, and then people wonder, what's with this person? Why are they doing this? So, Christina. What would happen if you didn't pay it twice? Just out of curiosity. And I wonder about maybe a fun response cost in this situation. If you pay the water bill twice, then you must put $1 into a jar, and at the end of the year, we'll take all the dollar bills in the jar for each month, and we will be sending that money to the opposite political party for which you'll be voting for in the next election. And then you will get on every mailing list you have never wanted to be on for the rest of your life. So you choose. Live with the discomfort of what if I didn't do it? Or keep doing the things that OCD wants you to do, make OCD stronger, and then do more and more of those OCD things because it becomes that vicious cycle that is going to keep happening. And that is your choice on where you want to go with that. Kristen says, I have years of CBT work before learning you have OCD. I feel like my brain was wired to neutralize thoughts or give self-reassurance. Any tips to break the habit? Every time you give reassurance, do an undo statement with it, right? So if you neutralize something, add a, or maybe not, to the experience and allow yourselves to start learning to live in a non-neutralized experience. That would be the goal. Let's see. Sonia says, first time here, don't quite know how it works. I had OCD, mainly obsessions for 39 years, off and on. Well, welcome, Sonia. Glad to have you here. And hopefully this will be a helpful experience for you. Perky, first time here too. Beth is like my handler now. She's telling everybody all about things. So there we go. Beatrice, your 12-year-old granddaughter was just diagnosed 2 months ago, and it is both scary and confusing. You just joined here hoping for guidance and ideas. Well, first of all, welcome, Beatrice. And second, hopefully you leave here with a message of hope, which is there is help available for OCD. But what you will also see here, Beatrice, is ways that OCD really tries to grab onto people and say, okay, he said this, but he didn't quite say it this way. So what if that's different, right? Or what if it's this, or what if it's that? And that's where OCD will go. But your granddaughter can definitely get help. I want you to know that. And the type of therapy we do is something called exposure and response prevention therapy, where we purposely have people do the uncomfortable things and learn that they can handle them without having to do compulsions. Because if compulsions were mandatory, well, we would tell everyone to do compulsions all the time, and then it would just make everybody's life better. Why not? Why reserve it just for OCD? I mean, I say do it all the time, right? Tell everybody to do compulsions. Or compulsions are not a necessary thing to do. And that's where we really want to get to, getting people to recognize, yeah, the compulsion is not the necessary thing to do. Garrett says, you're sharing with others that you reduced your OCD symptoms by having a laser ablation surgery. You had treatment for resistance for OCD. How common is that diagnosis? There are people who have really significant OCD who have gone through different routes, right? There's deep TMS, there's intensive outpatient, there's partial hospital programs, there's residential treatment centers, there's GABA knife surgery, and which I think is what you're kind of describing, something similar. And then there's even deep brain stimulation. So there are various things out there, if your traditional outpatient therapy doesn't work, that you can move up to higher and higher levels of care. And there's medications, and then there's even potentially surgical options as well. But those surgical options aren't going to be done until you've exhausted all the other things first. Blooper says, Doctor, I have the same magical thinking thought come across everything I do. If I have a bad thought, I will challenge you there. There is no such thing as a bad thought. There are just thoughts. Thoughts are not good. Thoughts are not bad. They're thoughts. So if you have a thought when doing something, I or my family members will die. How do I do ERP for this? It's too scary. Well, when you say, Blooper, it's too scary, I'm wondering what you mean by that. Is the idea of your family dying too scary? Because I think also having to live the rest of your life thinking that if you don't do a compulsion after a certain thought that your family's going to die sounds pretty too scary to me as well. Now, Blooper, you may be newer to here and not know this, but in my wallet, which is upstairs now right here, but in my wallet is a card that says, I hope my parents die tonight, please God, and there's a 666 on the card. And the reason is I was working with somebody who was very religious, who thought that if they had a negative thought about their parents and didn't do something to undo that thought, that their parents would be dead by the end of the day. And the undoing of the thought or the image or urge that they didn't like about their parents was to say a prayer. So I said to them, when we got up to the level of the hierarchy that we were really working on this one now, I said, here's the deal. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. So I'm going to take this card out of my wallet. And I wrote down, I hope my parents die tonight, please God, and then put a 666 on it. And I said, if you ever see me again anywhere, on the street, at a conference, back at the hospital, you can just come up to me and say, I'm the guy with the card. And I will produce the card for you and show you that I will keep this card with me. Now, someday, and if sometimes my parents are listening, so hi, Mom and Dad, if you're out there, but someday they are going to die, which either means the card has just been holding back until the day it decides to kill them, or even if I hadn't written that on the card, someday they're going to die and it's going to happen anyway. So I put no credence into the fact that my thoughts have power in some way whatsoever. Now, Blooper 785. If your thoughts are as powerful as you're telling me, right? If you have a bad thought when doing something, you or your family members will die. Let's switch it up. Blooper 785, I want you to go outside. I want you to think bad thoughts about all the trees in your neighborhood. And let's see if all of the trees just fall to the ground based on your thoughts. Now, if they do, let me know, because you, my friend, have some awesome powers, and we have finally met the very first superhero in the history of existence. Or you have OCD. Now, my money is going on the you have OCD line, just so you know. That's where I'm going to hedge all my bets, right? But maybe you really do have superpowers. And maybe your bad thoughts will kill your family members if you don't do something, like a compulsion. And if that's the case, how willing are you to test this? Or are you going to just be like, no? And then that's kind of along the lines of, if you ever go into downtown Chicago, there's a guy who walks around and he's got a 39-foot bamboo pole with him. And if you go up to him and say, sir, fascinating, you have a 39-foot bamboo pole with you. I'm just curious why. And he says, well, it keeps the elephants away. And if you say, sir, there's no elephants in Chicago, he says, I know. The pole works very well. That would be the same logic, blooper 785, as what you're describing, right? Whatever the magical thinking and the compulsion that you do to try to prevent something bad from happening would be just like the pole. So I say all of that just because I want you to keep this in mind, that you don't have to listen to what OCD says. It is not necessary. It is not mandatory. Pun Armor, MR says, OCD here with overwhelming thoughts and feelings that put you down. Why do I feel like I'm zoned out and not in reality sometimes? I feel like I'm not in the present. Therefore, I think of it the hard, and then we don't have anything else. Well, I think a lot of people with OCD probably feel zoned out or don't feel like they're in the present. In fact, most people I describe in a lot of my talks, a lot of people with anxiety live in the past and worry about how things are going to come back to haunt them, or they live in the future and worry about all of the things they haven't thought of yet and how those might be bad. And they very often don't live in the present. And I just want you to kind of keep that in mind, that it is very easy to stay out of the present when you have anxiety and to be so focused on the past or the future. Happens a lot. Pretty common, actually. Rebecca says, can I take deep breaths to lower my anxiety if it isn't OCD related, like getting overstimulated by noises and taking deep breaths to calm down? Rebecca, you can, but eventually what I'd like you to be able to do is to hear loud noises and not even need to do that. So I would like to work on reducing that or eliminating that, because otherwise, let's say that you're at an office and you're working, but there's construction going on the floor above, and there's hammering all day long. And every time they go boom, you go, I think your OC or your coworkers may want to, throw you out a window by the end of the day if that's what you do. And so wouldn't it be great to be able to be triggered and not have a safety behavior at all? That's ultimately what we'd really like to see happen, is that how can we experience something frightening to us and not be overwhelmed by it? That's where we want to go. Alex, she wrote, I will do things that I think are risky, but aren't really, like slowing down in front of a car when driving or tapping my brake when I know I have room. How do I stop this? Is it too attached to worry? I don't know if this is OCD or not, if you're bringing it up that way, and so I'm just wondering what the purpose of these things are. And without some more context, it's kind of hard to know for sure. Will NOCD ever adopt the space curriculum? You want to help your 7-year-old son with his symptoms. We have a family accommodation curriculum that we do and that we train our therapists on, specifically for family accommodations. So I haven't done the space training, so I don't know exactly all of the steps in it, but I know that our work on family accommodations is designed to really make sure that families aren't feeding into the OCD experience. Any advice or motivation for magical thinking OCD? Well, yeah. In terms of how much do you believe the magical thinking, and are you willing to just allow it to be there without doing any compulsions to attempt to neutralize it? And that's really what you want to do, right? Is, am I willing to to live with this thing in my head. So if I touch this, then something terrible will happen. Or if I don't do this, then something awful will happen there, right? Am I willing to just allow for that to be there without doing something to attempt to neutralize it in some way? That's where you'd want to go to, right? And I would work with a therapist who specializes in this, who can guide you through that, to allow for whatever the magical things that pop in your head are, and to go, yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I can handle it, and move on from there. Is it normal for my brain to not want my OCD to go away? Well, OCD doesn't want to go away, and OCD is in your brain. So, I mean, definitely OCD doesn't want to go away. It wants to stick around because OCD is like a frenemy, and maybe in a weirdly altruistic kind of way. It thinks that it's helping you when the reality is it just makes everything worse. And so it definitely does not want to go away. Just keep that in mind. Let's see. A couple of just hellos here. So working into what's our next question. Is it normal? I love these. Is it normal questions? Like, is it normal to have paranoia? Is it normal to have this? Is it normal for my brain not to want OCD to go away? Is it normal to have paranoia about being tracked, watched, surveillance for short periods of time, and then it goes away? I've been dealing with it for a couple of years. It sounds like it's normal for you. I don't know that it's normal necessary for everyone else. And my question would be, would you like some help with that? And if you would, I would reach out to a therapist who can specialize in those types of fears specifically. And there are people who will advertise that they do work on paranoia sounding thoughts, like, or images or something like that. So I think you can definitely find help for it if that's what you're looking for. Kafunk says, what kind of exposures can you do if your obsessive thoughts revolve around existential questions like the nature of existence and the meaning of life? Oh man, how fun. First of all, accepting that will you ever get an answer that you find to be satisfying? These questions have been debated for so many years. And, well, we haven't quite answered them as of yet. Now, there are lots of answers, but we have not come up with a consensus answer for any of these things. Is that okay? Sure. Does OCD think that's okay? Absolutely not. OCD says, nope, unacceptable. You must have an answer to these things. Well, guess what we're not going to get? We're not going to get a satisfying answer to these things. It is just not going to happen. So we're not here to give OCD what it wants. We're going to be here to learn that we can handle not knowing things all the way, right? And if that means that I can't know for sure if we're in a simulation or not, or the Matrix, that I can be pretty sure, but not 100%, I'm going to accept that. I might be the only person alive, and maybe there's just a chip in my head, and I go around all day thinking I'm interacting with people. And all of these things on the scroll could just be things that were already pre-programmed for me to answer. I don't know. It's a possibility. I don't think so. So I'm going to keep answering them because I don't think so. But I'm also okay without knowing for a guarantee. That I am also okay with. And that's where I'd like all of you to get to as much as possible. K-Kid says, harm OCD with dissociation. You feel insane. You just want a form of relief. You can work on dissociation with some interoceptive exposures like 5 minutes of hyperventilating can create some of those feelings. There's some great work out there for this. So I would take a look at finding somebody who really does good interoceptive work to help you with dissociation, and you can learn how to handle the dissociation experiences. Carrie says, as parents of a teen with OCD, can you give us several types of responses we could use that won't reassure? Of course, Carrie. Number one, Carrie, what I would recommend is this, and one of my favorite things that I do with families is I say, Carrie, I want you to get a notebook out tonight. I want you to put that notebook on the dining room table or the kitchen table or the coffee table, wherever. And Carrie, going forward, if your teen asks you a question that they've already asked and you've answered, and that is related to the OCD, I want you, Carrie, to write the question down, and then I want you to write down the answer. And anytime going forward your child asks you about it, I want you to just say, oh, that's in the book. We've already discussed that. That's all I want you to do, is that. Now, why, Carrie, would we do that? Well, for a pretty simple reason. You, Carrie, will never give your child an answer that they will absolutely accept. Maybe they will for a few moments, but then they will want more. So, Carrie, I always tell families to take a look at accommodations and safety behaviors. Number one, Carrie, are you helping your child to avoid things? Right. Number two, are you giving them reassurance? Are you telling them that they will be fine or everything will be okay? Number three, are you providing them with distractions? Or are you allowing them to experience the discomfort? There's a lot of families who say, I just don't want my kid to be uncomfortable. I cringe when I hear that. And the reason I cringe when I hear that is that means that OCD is going to try all it can to win. I mean, it's always going to try to win, but it's really going to grab onto that and go, oh, but remember, you don't want your child to be uncomfortable, do you? So wouldn't doing this compulsion just be the best thing for them? And you may do it, and then your child's like, oh, thank you. And then a few minutes later, you got to do it again. And then a few minutes later, you got to do it again. And then you got to do it again. And then you got to do it again. You got to do it again. And boy, that just is that's just pretty terrible, isn't it? That just kind of sucks. So it's hard. I want to acknowledge that for any parents out there who are here tonight, or spouses, or family members, this isn't easy. So if you've provided safety behaviors, I'm not here to blame you. You were doing what you thought was going to be the most helpful thing that you could. Okay, so please, this is a no blame zone. That being said, think about for a moment our friends in the substance abuse community. And Stacy and I come on and talk about that here. Right? Once a substance abuse problem is identified, we're always hopeful that you will not be providing any substances to a person with a substance abuse problem. And they're going to have to learn how to get on with life without the substance. And we would want the same thing for OCD. When you realize that, okay, the behaviors I'm doing are actually contributing to the OCD sticking around instead of helping the OCD to go away, I'm going to really work on committing to not doing those behaviors anymore that help OCD stick around. Because OCD is kind of like in-laws and fish. They go bad after 3 days. They need to get out of the house, right? And so it really comes down to, Carrie, are you running your home or is OCD running your home? I want you to think about that. Who's really in charge of your household? I've gotten calls from people who have said, we're not allowed to use this one bathroom. We all have to use the other bathroom and only they can use this bathroom. And I say, oh, well, so OCD's running your house. And they're offended at times. They say, no, it's my house. I pay for it. Say, okay, well, if it's your house, go use the other bathroom right now. Just go use it. and they pause for a moment. They're like, damn it, I don't even have control over my own home, right? When you give OCD the keys to the house and let it take control, it's really hard to live there, right? It's really hard to be around. And so I just want you to kind of think about this, and I would highly suggest working with a therapist who will help you with this, or even check out one of our NOCD 411 sessions where someone can get some more detail from you and walk you through some of these things. But the goal is to work on removing the accommodations that are provided to somebody. And so that gives them the opportunity then to make a choice of, how do I want to live in the house, right? Now, don't be shocked, Carrie, and moms and dads and family members, if OCD gets better before it gets worse. OCD's a little preschooler throwing a tantrum if it doesn't get what it wants, and it's going to throw the tantrum. And so I just want you to keep that in mind, that is what OCD is going to do. It is going to throw a tantrum. But that's all that it is a tantrum. You still don't have to do what it wants you to do. It's not required. OCD is not the source of truth. Okay. So good luck here. Jabubly says, have you ever treated someone with health concern OCD taking the form of their mental health concern, constantly afraid that they are going insane, checking their mental health symptoms? Yeah, definitely. Sometimes people even call that like schizophrenia OCD or something like that, where people are afraid of that, and they're constantly seeing, how's my memory? Is it intact? Am I having any thoughts that seem psychotic? If I do, what should I do about it? And maybe I should go get evaluated, and should I be on a different kind of medication or something like that, right? So yes, I'm sorry. Scroll back up. Yes, Jabubly, absolutely, we see that, right? And again, just like any other kind of OCD, there's really good treatment for that with exposure and response prevention. So I would highly suggest you seek that out. Check us out at NOCD.com if you're looking for that. TY says, I've been trying to do ERP for a sort of butterfly effect OCD. I'm obsessed with whether every little decision I do or don't make will have unforeseen negative outcomes in the future. Exposure ideas. Well, with every little decision you make. So why don't you decide right now for the world to end tomorrow? In fact, I'm going to do that too. I've decided the world will be ending tomorrow, everyone. So thank you for joining me on the very last Wednesday night webinar provided by OCD. I did this a couple of weeks ago where I decided that I would wake up and be the only person alive the next day. That failed miserably. You're all still here. But I'm going to try it again. My decision is that I will be the only person alive on the world tomorrow. None of you will be here. So TY, I've just made a decision. It may have unforeseen circumstances. I'm going to do no compulsions to try to prevent it from happening whatsoever. Let's see what happens. TY, will you join me in wishing for you to be the only person alive tomorrow? Will any other of you here tonight join me in that wish as a way to challenge if our thoughts are actually true or not true? Once again, everyone, you've spent an hour with me. Thank you for joining me on the Wednesday night webinar brought to you by NOCD. If you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, check out NOCD.com. That's NOCD.com. We work with you on all sorts of things like body-focused repetitive behaviors, like tics, like hoarding and obsessive compulsive disorder. We work in the UK and Canada. We work in Australia. We work in the US. A little loud there, sorry about that. And we take insurance. So, thanks for joining, everyone. Hope it was a great January. See you in February.